spent nearly 3 months talking about the best players in the Tri-State area in high school baseball, and now we're here to officially crown the elite of the elite. Welcome to this special edition of Around the Diamond, our all-Metro baseball show here on MSGVarsity.com. I'm your host, Kevin Devaney Jr. I'm not going to be doing this alone. I did not pick the all-Metro team alone. I'm going to bring in my friends and my panel of experts. We're going to bring in our reporters, Elio Velez from New York City, Greg Lerner from New Jersey, and our producer, Eddie Margulies from Long Island to talk Tri-State baseball as we crown the top 15 players. We're going to go somewhat by position. We're going to take some liberties here with our positions and our Metro team, but we're going to crown the best of the best. We're going to name our player of the year, our pitcher of the year, our coach of the year, and we're going to talk about those guys in depth. Be sure to go on MSGVarsity.com and check out our second team and our honorable mention after you watch the show. Well, we're going to start off with the backstop position, the catcher for our All-Metro first team. He was a two-time MSG Varsity Hudson Valley Player of the Year. Our first team catcher for All-Metro is Drew Lug Bauer of Arlington. Maybe the prettiest left-handed swing in the Tri-State. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. Drafted in the 21st round by the Toronto Blue Jays, but he's going to head to Michigan and play catcher there. Maybe actually switch over to first base at the college level and hopefully the professional level. 6'4", 210, 8 home runs his senior year, and he was a guy who did not see many pitches to hit. Certainly didn't see many fastballs, and the ones that he did get to see, he knocked out of the park. He was so good the last 3 seasons, part of 2 Section 1 Class AA championship squads as a sophomore and as a junior. This season, couldn't get it done in the postseason. Did Arlington, lost to eventual section champion Ketchum in the semifinals, but Drew Lug Bauer, two-time MSG Varsity Hudson Valley Player of the Year, and as I said, our first team catcher, batted .424, 23 RBIs, 26 runs scores, and again, he walked 22 times, was good from start to finish, actually made the second out in the last game of the season, and he muscled the ball to the fence in right field that just couldn't get out. But Drew Lug Bauer gonna go play in Michigan next season, and as our first team catcher as we get things started here on our All-Metro first team catcher. Not an easy position to pick. I think we had 3 kids from the Hudson Valley, from the Tri-State, drafted out of the catcher spot. Drew Lug Bauer, though, he stands among the rest as our first team catcher. So now we're going to bring in our experts, and our first expert is going to bring him in is Elio Velez. Now he's in our newsroom at MSG Varsity. Elio, thanks for joining us. How's everything going? Good?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's
good.
Great.
Excellent. Well, we're going to get into our first guy from New York City, or your MSG Varsity New York City reporter. And the first guy we're going to talk about is our third baseman, and that is Wesley Rodriguez from George Washington. And just the postseason, really the full season that Wesley Rodriguez has as a junior, how good was he this year?
Oh, he was great, man. He's been a 3-year starter, and each year he's progressed. He's gotten better and better. And this year he hit his heights and average in in RBIs. He's the most fearsome hitter in that lineup. And he just showed every time he's at the plate that most teams had to pitch around him. But if they got a fastball, he was just gonna knock it around. He's a all fields hitter. He's getting stronger every year. Also, he became the team's pitcher, starting pitcher at the end of the year because he was already the team's closer, and he closed out some big games. I remember one game he closed out against Poly Prep with the bases loaded, nobody out in the 6th inning. And he got the bases though, he got it out, and they won the game against Poly Prep. That was a big win.
And now with him, again, he's kind of like he's a fresh arm as a pitcher. He has another year left of high school. 46 strikeouts in 20 2/3 innings pitched. Could you see him becoming one of the best pitchers in the city next season?
I think he's definitely one of the best closers, but right now he's the #1 pitcher on that staff, and his fastball is great. He's got a good off-speed slider. The kid could be even more lethal as the #1 ace next year, and he'll lead a young team again next year. And he told me after that they lost to the Grand Street campus, he really wants to win, and I think he's going to go out pitching and hitting next year.
Excellent. It's going to be very interesting to see how Wesley Rodriguez, one of our first team third baseman, fares, as he's one of the underclassmen that made our squad this year. A veteran, a senior, and we're going to put him in the outfield, even though he really made a name for himself more as a pitcher. And he's being from Cardozo High School, Keith Rogers. Did anybody, I mean, this could be just New York City, but did anybody in the Tri-State have as good of a postseason as Keith Rogers did for Cardozo?
Arguably, there's no one had a better postseason than Keith Rogers. It's funny, Cardozo wasn't one of the top teams we were considering as the year went on, but as they got better and better and they got into the playoffs, we heard about Keith Rogers, and he became such a big-time pitcher. He won 4 games in the postseason. He beat Telecommunications, last year's champion. He beat George Washington in the game they needed to win in Game 2 of the best of 3. And in the championship game, he just held down the Townville Bats. 1 run allowed in 6 innings. And he just caused fits because fastball, slider, and Ron Gurecki, the head coach, said he's the most, where was this guy, all year? Where was all the attention? And we found out at the biggest place, the house that Ruth built, that he became, a star. Also had the go-ahead RBI single in the 7th inning, and he did it with his bat too.
Yeah, he was 11-0 as a pitcher, and as you said, he was in the top 5 in the PSAL in hits, average, and RBI. 569 batting average, off the charts good. He has not decided what he's doing next year officially, has he yet? What sort of future do you think he has? And does his size, being 5'9", do you think hold him back a little bit?
Yes, I think it does hold him back, but with this off season, he's gotten stronger. I think he'll go to a 2-year school, and with that, he may get to a 4-year school, but he's developing every year, so I still think he's got a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because, I mean, you have to, in baseball, you look at what a guy does on a big stage, like he did at Yankee Stadium, to go out there and just pitch a gem, 8 strikeouts, 6 innings, hit the game, the go-ahead run in the 7th inning. That was a pretty amazing performance there, being Keith Rogers, your MSG Varsity New York City Player of the Year, made our first team as well. Maybe the surprise team of the postseason, Elio, was Zavarian and their pitcher, Anthony Sigismondi, and he locks up a first-team spot from the pitching position. And, again, another guy, just dominant from start to finish.
His postseason got him on the first team, and look what he did.
Yeah.
Zavarian 7 times staved off elimination to get to the championship game, and Sigismondi was there all the time. I mean, he had a big win against Iona Prep, 1-0. He beat St. Joseph by the Sea. They went 9 innings, and he pitched all 9 innings to win that game against Sea, to get to the championship game. And Zavarian, look what they did to get to Game 2, to beat Malloy, and Sigismondi was on the mound, and he went all the way. He had 3 runs in that 6th inning. They were up 6-4, Zavarian, and Frank Del George, the head coach, did not want to take him out, and Sigismondi didn't want to either. He wanted to finish the job, and you like that about it. He's an intense competitor. He doesn't have overpowering stuff, but he gets the job done, and he closed out the game. And Zavarian, wow, look at the run they made, and that's why, and he was right at the forefront.
And he right at the forefront, was the MVP, the Jack Curran MVP. In the tournament, the Catholic League tournament. You see them celebrating at home plate on the mound right there, and Sigismondi getting that final out. And again, 10-3 record on the season, a 1.32 ERA. Pitching in, you could say what you want. I mean, how great the Catholic League is. It definitely has the depth, and you don't have any easy roads, no easy games in that one. And Anthony Sigismondi took the ball against all the best teams in that league and won 10-3, was the best pitcher in the league by season's end. So great job for Anthony Sigismondi, first team All-Metro here on MSG Varsity, from Zavarian, the senior, headed to Pace University next year. Now, Elio, before I let you go, was Cardozo the story of the year because of what they did in the postseason? Was it Zavarian the story of the year in New York City because of what they did in the postseason? When you look back, what do you remember the most?
I remember the great run Zavarian did. I mean, to stave off elimination 7 times and graduate 17 seniors the year before, and still find a way to get through the top teams, St. Joseph by the Sea, Malloy, in a tough double elimination tournament, which is grueling. I mean, you know how long the Catholic League playoffs, it seems like you go forever, but they found a way to survive. And Cardozo was probably the second surprise story. If one is Zavarian, Cardozo is 1A. They're not far behind. So I think we had some great storylines this year. Some teams who rised up, and it's going to be pretty good next year. It was a very good year for New York City.
I agree. Elio, very good year for you as well. I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll bring it back, and hopefully football season, we'll be talking some New York City football.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
All right, Elio Velez, MSGVarsity.com reporter for New York City, does a fantastic job. And as we said, go online, MSGVarsity.com, check out his full New York City All-Star teams. Those are the New York City representatives that made our All-Metro team, the top 15 players in the Tri-State area. Very exclusive list to make. We move on now to the DH position, another guy from the Hudson Valley. And he's a name that's been around the Hudson Valley and really he's been an All-American, so he's been cross-country good, and that is Tony Romanelli of Beacon High School. He makes our first team All-Metro as the designated hitter, and really could have made it as a pitcher, could have made it as a first baseman. His resume will rank among the best players to come out of the Hudson Valley in the last 20 years, because he's a 3-time All-American, made the first team All-American last year as a junior, and came out this season and totally dominated. Undefeated record, an ERA of 0.57, batted .430, hit 3 homers. Really was just an ace of the staff the last 4 seasons. Was a Section 1 Pitcher of the Year 4 times. Made it as a freshman his first season. He's going to continue his career at Wake Forest, and he was as good as advertised all season long. He was a guy who, again, Beacon went out and played a brutal schedule the last 2 seasons, and Romanelli was the guy on the hill for all the best teams that they faced. So Tony Romanelli from the Hudson Valley is our MSG Varsity first team designated hitter, and as I said, 24 RBIs, 23 runs scored for him, All-American, 3-time All-American, and Tony Romanelli going to do big things at Wake Forest next season as a pitcher. He's going to head there as a pitcher next season. It's going to be very interesting to see how he develops because that left hand that he has, that left arm at 6'2", it's going to be very interesting to see how he blossoms as a college pitcher. So we had Elio Velez in now, and now we're going to bring in our Long Island guru of high school baseball. I don't know if anyone sees more baseball on Long Island than our guy Eddie Margulies, who joins us now. And Eddie, producer, not a writer. You know, you were a guy behind the camera. How much baseball did you see this season?
I actually counted it the other day. I think it was 43 baseball games this year. 43
baseball games. It's almost like, was there 43 nice days in the baseball season in Long Island? It's gonna. No. That's a big number.
Didn't get nice until May, unless, I mean, everyone on Long Island knows that it was just bitter cold most of the time, but the real baseball weather didn't happen until about the end of May.
I know you saw more games than Greg Sarah did, which is great for Newsday. So Eddie, thanks for joining us now. We're gonna get to the Long Island representatives on our All-Metro team. But first, we're gonna start with the infielder and a guy who was drafted, and that being from Comac, Jesse Berardi. And again, you know, Comac didn't win a championship, but just the season that he had as a shortstop, as a defensive player, was pretty special to watch.
Well, yeah, I mean, he comes in as an all Long Island guy from last year, 2-time League One MVP. I mean, he was the catalyst to Comac this year getting into the playoffs. They were one of the last teams to get into the playoffs. They had a heartbreak loss in the first round against Comac. Were able to battle back, though, and get close into the elimination bracket all the way to Hills West, coming just short of getting up to another shot at West Islip in the county finals. But if you just look at he's got all 5 tools. It just seems like he can hit for power, run for speed, defense. He just makes it look easy. And you can see right there, I mean, you could try walking him, but he'll be on third and probably 2 or 3 pitches later, just the way he steals the bases.
Yeah, terrific defensive player, too. That was the one thing that I've noticed when watching the highlights of him. It's just how good of an arm he has, and just, you know, right there you see him turning a double play. And drafted by the Philadelphia Phillies, and he's going to play at St. John's, but just tell me, you know, his future. I mean, for a guy his size, only 5'10", 185, what sort of future do you think he has?
Well, I think he has a great future. I mean, you were talking before about his arm. I mean, he makes it look so easy just throwing those plays over the first. I mean, he's got the speed, he's got the knowledge especially. I mean, he doesn't let anything deter him at the plate.
Yeah, and I agree, and he's a terrific player, as you said. St. John's getting a nice shortstop there. We move on to the pitching position, and you have a couple guys from Long Island who deserve some recognition here. And first, we start with maybe the most talked about player on Around the Diamond, our show.
Your favorite.
Yeah, my favorite is Adam Heidfelder. You know, I don't know if there's anybody, when you walk up to a game, does anybody pass the eye test better than the MacArthur Ace?
No, and I know when he sees me coming out there, I'm pretty much a bad luck charm. I think I was the only one out there for his only loss, so he doesn't want to see me out there either.
But 6'4", 240, and just the velocity he has. Was there a better strikeout pitcher on the island?
No, well, besides the other pitcher that's on the list here. But, I mean, it was just dominating. I mean, the first game you see here, I mean, he was only clocking mid to low 80s, but I remember talking to him after the game. He said he can get up to as much as, I think, as low 90s.
Yeah.
But and then he just throws in that little curveball there, you'll see right here. I mean, it's just almost unhittable.
He was terrific, and he was good from the start. And MacArthur, as you said, you know, not winning a county championship, a little bit of disappointment. They get upset, but 70 strikeouts, 34 innings. It wasn't because of him that they didn't win.
No, I mean, you look at the last game he pitched. He went 9 innings. I think it was 16 or at least double-digit strikeouts. I mean, you can't do more than that.
18 strikeouts in the win over Valley Stream Central in the regular season. He's a reigning Blue Diamond Award winner, and just you know, Heidfelder, would you be surprised, or would you be surprised if you didn't see him one day at some level of professional baseball?
No, I mean, you look at a lot of guys from the island now making the pros. I mean, you look at last night, Marcus Stroman making the pros last night. I mean, he was a big strikeout guy, but different framework, obviously. But I mean, I'm not surprised not seeing him if I don't.
Adam Heidfelder is making our MSG Varsity All-Metro first team. Another guy, first team pitcher, pitching rich Long Island, and this guy is going to take home a top honor and that being our MSG Varsity All-Metro Pitcher of the Year goes to Jack Picos of Bayport Blue Point, your two-time defending Class A state champions. And again, Eddie, how good was Picos when it mattered most?
I mean, it's the past 2 years. Last year going 11-0, this year going 10-1. But I mean, you talk to Jim, it was a coach at Bayport Blue Point. Yeah. It just seemed like whenever they needed to win the postseason or anywhere, they just looked to Jack.
And his performance against Division, winning the Long Island Championship for the second year in a row, and his performance in the state semifinals really separate Jack Picos from the pack. And how much did you enjoy days when you knew you were going to go out and watch Bayport and watch Picos pitch?
Well, it's funny. Every time I went out to Bayport, it just seemed like I always miss a Jack start. And then I finally got rewarded this year at the LICs.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, you look at the division, and they were just one of these high-powered offenses, and you're thinking, is Jack going to be able to get through that offense unscathed? But it was just, once they got that 3-run lead in the first inning, they just seemed to be in cruise control for the rest of the inning. So
I said before about Heidenfelder's strikeout numbers, and Picos' numbers were just as good, if not better. 122 Ks in 74 and a third innings, 4-0 with a basically a 0.50 ERA in the playoffs. Also batted pretty good, Ed, didn't he?
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at the, the Class A championship game. I know he wasn't pitching, he had PJ Weeks pitching, but he comes up with a big 2-run home run there to put separation and make it easy for them to get the last out there against Shoreham Wading River.
Yeah, and so he had a great job and the great performance in the Class A state tournament, state semifinals, pitched them to a win, part of the big offensive output in the win over Rye to go back-to-back in state titles. So Jack Picos of Bayport Blue Point, our MSG Varsity Pitcher of the Year for the All-Metro squad. Now our Coach of the Year honors, we're not going to go too far off the island, and we're not going to go too far out of the corner of the island that we pick it from. And our Coach of the Year goes to Jim Mosio, the coach, Mosio of Bayport Blue Point, two-time state champions. And Eddie, they win last year, they go undefeated, they were the story of the Tri-State. Were you expecting them to even win a county title again this year?
No, I mean, a lot of people were picking them not even to win their own league with League 7. I mean, in Class A at Suffolk, I mean, you had Shoreham Wading River coming in as the favorite, and they took 2 out of 3 against Bayport at the end of the season to take the county title away from them. Mm-hmm. But going into the postseason, it just seemed like they took it into a different gear, winning that winner's bracket one against Shoreham Wading River at Shoreham Wading River with Picos starting win 6-1, and then coming back at Bayport next week later and going behind PJ Weeks and getting the 4-0 victory against Shoreham again.
Yeah, and I watched Bayport last year, and I think they were just a dominant team talent-wise. And this year you saw a team that just steadily grew as the year went on. Jim Mosio deserves a lot of the credit for that. Eddie, thanks for joining us this week. You do so much work behind the scenes, and I'm glad to get you in front of the camera here and talk a little Long Island baseball. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, so Eddie Margulies, our MSGVarsity.com Long Island producer for Around the Diamond, and every show here, this guy he's probably the hardest working guy I think we work with here at MSGVarsity.com. So great job by Eddie this season and every season. So we go through the Long Island guys, and now we are going to move on to New Jersey. Before we do that, be sure, MSGVarsity.com, we are loaded with our all-star teams. We picked an all-Connecticut squad, and Randy Polonia of Trinity Catholic was our Connecticut Player of the Year. We picked New York City Player of the Year, who we talked about before, Hudson Valley All-Star teams. And of course, you can go online and you can check out all of those first team, second team, honorable mention selections. And of course, you can check out our New Jersey page, which was probably the hardest team to pick. And that's what Greg Lerner likes to tell us, how difficult it is, how much baseball talent there is in the state of New Jersey. And be sure when you go online, there is no Long Island All-Star team up just yet. But the New Jersey team is there, and it reads pretty impressive, the list of talent that comes to the New Jersey squad. We picked our top 20 poll, and you can check out that, of course, on our Around the Diamond pages, and you can check out our latest final season all top 20 poll. And Poly Prep was our #1 team in the Tri-State, but it was a lot of New Jersey teams after that, and great talent coming out of the state of New Jersey. And we may have one of our most talented reporters in the state of New Jersey, and that being Greg Lerner. And now he joins us in that chair. See, now you have a look in your face like you think I'm being facetious. I'm being totally honest here.
I think we're all good, buddy.
All right.
We're all great.
We're all great. So, Greg, thanks for joining us. It's good to have you in the studio, not on Skype. I know it's a long ride in from Toms River, so thanks for joining us on the show here. When you look at before we get into our next round of players, when you look at the postseason in New Jersey. Was this maybe one of the biggest surprises you saw postseason-wise in New Jersey?
Unpredictable, Kev. That's
Yeah.
the word that jumps right out. Yeah, it was very unpredictable. Man, we beat this subject like a horse this year in terms of just the parity in the state of New Jersey, and the state tournament bore that out. So, you know, it made things interesting, and I think it promoted around the state this true belief amongst a lot of teams that, you know, why not us? And that's the way it played out, you know, the last weekend of the season.
And last week in the season decided who state champions were, also decided who New Jersey All-Stars were, and it put a lot of guys now into the All-Metro conversation. And I think a guy who was really there all year, though, was Al Molina. And he's our next guy in our All-Metro first team infielder, and Al Molina of Red Bank Catholic. And just, again, another guy, very, very good with the glove, very, very good with the stick.
Super, super talented. Going to Coastal Carolina, got drafted by the Phillies. You know, first, when you talk about Al, you got to talk about his defense. His footwork at shortstop is phenomenal. That's why he's got great range at that position. And then on top of that, his arm. His arm is live. It's accurate. That's why the Caseys used him on the bump when they could to close games out. Swinging the bat, Kev, I mean, he gets barreled to the ball constantly. He looks in the gaps. He lives in the gaps. The kid is legit. He's been legit since he's been there. You know, Coastal Carolina's getting a phenomenal player. I don't foresee him signing with the Phillies, but I'll tell you what, 2 years from now, he's probably going to hear his name called again. It'll be a lot earlier in the draft. The kid is legit. He's very talented.
Yeah, I know we talked about Al Molina and about his, you know, a lot of guys who get drafted out of the high school ranks, if they get drafted anything from 20th round on, they most likely go to college. Did he make it clear he wanted to go to Coastal Carolina, and where do you think he could be drafted in as you said, 2 years from now?
No, you know, it's playing to your point. That, you know, usually high school kids that go later in the draft, it's kind of understood they're not going to sign, because it's to get somebody out of a college scholarship, it takes money. Let's be honest. You got to sign them out of that scholarship. I don't foresee Al, you know, reneging on his commitment to Coastal Carolina. But I'm telling you, you know, in 2 years, his game's going to elevate. It's only going to get better at a high level of Division I baseball. And, you know, I think in 2 years from now, he could quite possibly, you know, healthy, God forbid anything were to happen to him, but, you know, if he stays healthy, his skill level at shortstop, his bat, his arm, there's so many things about him that are plus that I can only see him elevating himself in the draft 2 years from now.
It's going to be very interesting to see. Keep an eye on Al Molina as he goes to Coastal Carolina. Now we move on to a couple outfielders that come out of the state of New Jersey, where it's, you know, outfield's a tough position because, you know, a lot of guys who play the outfield, you know, the best players are pitchers or shortstop, but we had some good outfielders. And again, we speak about guys' versatility. From Mahwah, Shane Wolfel, versatile as an outfielder, as a hitter, and as a pitcher as well.
No doubt about it. And he's one of those kids, Kev. Every guy that covers the region has one of these kids. He seems like he's been there for 12 years.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a reason for that, because Shane's been prominent for the Thunderbirds during his 4 years at Mahwah. You know, he's a kid who did great work on the bump. You know, I think 19-4 career record. Defensively in the outfield, great range. You know, there's no ball hit into a gap that's a sealed deal for extra bases when Shane's patrolling in the outfield. Covers a lot of ground, good anticipation, wonderful reads on the ball, and then furthermore, his offense speaks for itself. I mean, you know, not just the hits, it's the runs. You know, 49 runs, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And you know, to get on base, listen, if you got 44 hits, you're not going to score every time. But the 49 runs speaks to his command of the strike zone, you know, sitting on his pitches, not going after a pitcher's pitch, tough out. And I thought this year especially, because Mahwah has, during this run of the last 3 years, they've had a lot of carryover talent. This year's team, you know, Shane was definitely the most seasoned, the most decorated guy for the Thunderbirds. And there's some pressure on guys like that, because, you know, you want your younger teammates to kind of look at you, to emulate you, and to carry it through during the course of the season, which I think that the Thunderbirds did in terms of their postseason run. I think Shane was right at the forefront of that run, and rightfully so, because he was a veteran.
And quickly, as you said, he was 27-29 in stolen base attempts. He was 19-4 as a pitcher, batted almost 500. What do you see his future as? What position do you think he'll play in college?
Video game, man. Those numbers are all video games,
Yeah.
So he might be working for EA Sports someday. You know, I think that he's probably an outfielder. You know, his pitching stuff was very good on the high school level, but I would foresee that Shane is going to focus on playing, you know, in the outfield, being the offensive force that he's been at the high school level, And I believe Bloomsburg is getting a very, very good player that they're going to be very happy to have in the lineup for the next 4 years, that's for sure.
Okay, great. So now we're going to round out the outfield for our MSG Varsity All-Metro first team. And our last outfielder is from Rutgers Prep, and that is Anthony Brocato. And Brocato, again, another guy, over 100 career hits. His batting average might be the highest, one of the highest of any guys in this list. Greg, as a pure contact hitter, where is Brocato ranked?
Well, at the top,
yeah.
You know, 618 batting average. And here's a team, you know, Kev, that a year ago won non-public B, the state championship, suffered a great deal from graduation. Anthony, when I think about the Argonauts this year, I'm saying, my God, this guy's got a lot of pressure on his shoulder because he's like the only guy back who had formidable, you know, amounts of at-bats, who was in the forefront of everything that Rutgers Prep did a year ago. And that all said, he took it to another level, and then carried the team offensively. And that's no disrespect to the other Argonauts, okay? These guys had a leader that they could look at and say, oh, that's how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
You know, I think 3 games the entire season where he didn't have a hit. His multiple hit games were, you know, I think 13, whatever it was. You know, and not just your 2 for 3 games. You know, you're talking about 5 for 5 games. He had a game with 3 home runs and 6 RBIs. Hits for power, hits for average, uses all fields. You know, when you're talking about Anthony, most conversations begin with his offense, and rightfully so, because the numbers do speak for themselves. But I think an anchor in center field, you know, in terms of stabilizing them defensively up the middle. So many positives revolving around Brocato's game, and you know, Ed Blankmeyer at St. John's has got to be thrilled to getting a kid of his caliber coming in.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the type of kid, because of how good he is defensively, he's a kid that can slide in to the outfield early on in his career and make big contributions.
Yeah, I think that the sky is the limit for Anthony, and in terms of impact, defensively, offensively, no question that Blanky's got to be thrilled to have him coming over to, you know, across the river to help the, you know, St. John's.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we move on to the utility spot, kind of the extra spot on the first team, making it 15 guys on our All-Metro first team on MSG Varsity, and that guy is from St. Peter's Prep. Is TJ Ward. And again, one of the first notes you wrote to me about how good he was how good he was defensively and the shortstop position that he plays.
No doubt. And Kev, you know, a little backstory on TJ is that here's a kid who was a victim of circumstances with the entire thing that went down at Temple, you know, with them losing their baseball program. TJ was going to Temple. And then, you know, obviously for people that aren't aware of what went down at Temple, but they eliminated the baseball program at the end of the season. So now you're looking at a senior year where that stability of, like, you know, I'm locked in, I'm going to Temple, and now that's off the table. And then he finds out, you know, he's got to go find another place to play. He lands on his feet going to Hartford, and then after that's all settled, now he can concentrate on doing what he does best, which is play the game. Kev, beyond his skill as a shortstop and as an offensive threat for the Marauders, he's one of these kids who you'll never question his passion for the game, his respect for the integrity of the game. Man, he's one of those kids that if you go to a game with your son, you're going to grab your son and say, hey, check out the kid over there playing shortstop. That's the kind of kid that you want to pattern your game after. Just does everything the right way, gets after it offensively. You know, the kid who in that 3 spot, you know, in St. Peter's order, pitchers don't want to mess around with. And because of the depth of St. Peter's order this year, there weren't a lot of options of getting around and avoiding TJ, and he makes you pay if you're going to pitch to him. Again, a lot of power to the gaps, a line drive guy, the type of swing, like I said, that you want to pattern, you want to emulate, and Hartford's getting a classy kid, you know, a better person than baseball player, and I think a lot of programs would be envious of having that come in.
Excellent. So congratulations to TJ Ward, St. Peter's Prep, making our MSG Varsity All-Metro first team as a utility. Now we move on back to the pitching spots. Now I have a thing when it comes to picking all-star teams. I always favor seniors. I don't sacrifice the integrity of it, but I like veteran guys. Guys, you know, give the spoils to the veteran guys. But Luca Delatri of Christian Brothers Academy did not make that very easy, because he was so good this year as a 6'6" sophomore, Greg.
Luca, wow. I'll tell you what, anybody that went up against Luka this year offensively slept with the fishes, man. Luka put people to sleep. You know what? Here's the thing, and I feel you on the seniors. You know, they deserve the spoils. But by the same token, I like to recognize kids who have a great season. And Luka, 11-0. You know, here's a guy who he plays for Marty Kenny, one of the most respected coaches in New Jersey, one of the most decorated guys in New Jersey. And when a coach of that status comes up and says, you know, I've never had a guy like this, or I've never had a guy who could do that, it kind of piques your ears a little bit, like, whoa, really?
Yeah.
So, I mean, 11-0, listen, he's the guy who's got a live fastball, but it's the movement on the fastball, it's the control of the fastball, it's his, what I love about Luka is his acumen for the job. It's not just firing fastballs and spinning curveballs and dropping changeups. It's about hitting spots, hitting locations, outthinking and outworking hitters, and that's what Luka does, to the point where you're like, really? He's a sophomore?
Yeah.
I can't get over that. So that's how good he is, and he's good offensively too. But just his composure on the mound is amazing.
Yeah, amazing numbers too, as you said. For a young guy to have 90 strikeouts and 12 walks in 72 innings pitched, it's, as you said, it speaks to the volumes about he's not just a big kid at 6'6" who's going to throw the ball hard and expect to blow up by guys. He's really a pitcher. You look at the schools recruiting him, Stanford, UNC, Kentucky. He's only a sophomore. We don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but what is his ceiling as a pitcher?
I think it's there is no ceiling.
Wow.
It's limitless in terms of what he can do. And it's funny too, because when you say the stats back, it just resonates with you. Like, wow, they really are astronomical numbers. And I'm telling you, the thing that I really like about Luka too is it's effortless. All right, there's not a lot of, like, you know, extra movement. Everything that he does in his delivery is used to its fullest. There's nothing excess about it. And so big too, man. You know what? It's one of those kids that, like, when you look at him, and he comes from an athletic background, his family is very basketball oriented. His mom was a professional basketball player.
Wow.
His dad was a basketball coach. But when you think about it, 6'6", 240, and he's standing on a mound from 60 feet 6 inches, and his release point is here, Kev.
Yeah.
Like the ball's coming into your face, basically. He just uses everything he's got to the maximum.
Does he play basketball?
He plays basketball. Now, listen, from what I understand, he's a JV player at CBA. So I don't know how good he is basketball-wise, and I'm totally speaking out of school if I'm going to judge him on that. But I can tell you where he is baseball-wise. He's first team All-Metro, and he's first team with a bullet. Absolutely.
Now we have 2 spots left on our All-Metro team, and the next guy up is another pitcher from New Jersey, and that's Brandon Belak from St. Joe's. And again, we look at numbers, and you have to put into context about the competition, Greg, that he plays.
Brandon, you know, generally got the ball in big spots, and for obvious reasons. You know, going to Notre Dame. The thing about Brandon this year was that St. Joe's had they had a very good pitching staff, deep and talented, and across the board. Like Brandon being a senior, all the way down to Justin Willis, who's a freshman to watch. Okay, at St. Joe's. And I thought that Brandon took his role quite seriously this year. Beyond what he did on the mound and what he did offensively, his numbers were excellent offensively. He recognized that people were watching him this year. Not necessarily scouts, but teammates, younger teammates, impressionable guys. And I thought that if you asked anybody on that coaching staff at St. Joe's, Book or anybody else, they're going to tell you that the intangibles that Brandon brought to the table this year, leading by example, setting a good work ethic that younger guys should follow, and not just this year, but it's on them to carry it forward throughout their careers at St. Joe's. Those are the type of things that Brandon brought this year that can't be measured in stats, but they're appreciated by a coaching staff and by his teammates. His numbers basically speak for themselves. And furthermore, he's been doing it for 4 years, you know, at St. Joe's. He's one of those guys. He's been a fixture. He's been accountable, and with good reason, because he's reliable in that regard, Kev.
Yeah, he was terrific as a hitter as well. Batted .420 with 24 RBI. Complete package. He's got a rank. Obviously, he's one of the top 15 players in the Tri-State, but just the complete package of an athlete. I think the hitting speaks to that as well, right, Greg?
No doubt about it. I think you used the word. He's an athlete. You know, plays shortstop, good defensively. Again, his offensive numbers were fantastic. I got to see him a couple of times where he didn't pitch, but swinging the bat makes an impact. You know, and that's the thing too, man. A lot of these guys in this day and age are specialists, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a pitcher, I'm not a batter, or I'm a hitter who doesn't pitch, whatever. Brandon addresses every need at any moment that it's needed. And to me, those are the type of guys who are invaluable to your program.
And now finally, our last spot on our MSG Varsity All-Metro baseball team for the 2014 season. It's a first baseman, Greg, and now you had a little bit the same struggles in terms of picking our player of the year from New Jersey as we did. I think it's all the same guys in the conversation. But in the end, Joe Rotelli, St. John Vianney, again, you don't want to say to the victor who the spoils, but he was the best player on one of the best teams in the tri-state.
No, completely deserving. You know, Joe had a phenomenal season to bat over 500. And let's remember something: their schedule is grueling. Okay, they're in a division that's got RBC, that has Rumson, has Shore, which won Group 1. There's no days off in that division of the Shore Conference for St. John Vianney. And furthermore, Joe Rotelli didn't take a day off. He didn't take a bat off. And you break down the numbers, he didn't take a pitch off, Kev. He worked pitchers. He exhausted pitchers. Because they had to try and find a way to retire this guy. And his numbers prove that it was basically impossible to do so. 529 average is nothing to sneeze at in the division of the Shore Conference that they're in. And then on top of which, look at his numbers in the postseason. I mean, 10 for 18. You know, batting well over 500 and against some of the best teams in the state of New Jersey, Kev. I know they're not in our area. But, you know, I've kind of emphasized the point. Gloucester Catholic and Bishop Eustace, two teams in South Jersey, who if you ask anybody on the Jersey side of the river to start naming the best baseball programs in the state of New Jersey, Gloucester Catholic and Bishop Eustace won't take long to come out of those people's mouths.
Yeah.
So for him to do what he did and then just raise the game when the stakes were elevated in the state tournament really solidified the season that Joe Rotelli had, and it magnified what St. John Vianney did down the stretch of the last 2 weeks of the season.
Terrific, as we said, 10 of 18 in 5 state tournament games. That's going to get it done as an MSG Varsity Tri-State Player of the Year. So you have the Pitcher of the Year is Jack Picos from Bayport. Our Player of the Year is Joe Rotelli of St. John Vianney. So congratulations to both those guys. Congratulations to all those guys. Greg, thanks for joining us. Coming into the studio today. Hope to have you in a whole lot more during the football season.
Hey, rumor has it you're somewhere in this building. I just can't find you, but I plan on looking for you once I come off camera.
Follow the smell of coffee and donuts, and you'll find me. So, Greg Lerner, thanks for stopping in.
Always enjoy it, man. I want to thank all the guys behind the scenes that make this show click the way it does, man. It's like a Swiss watch.
Excellent, great job, Greg, and great job to all the 15 guys that made our first team. MSGVarsity.com. We picked a second team as well, and as well as honorable mention. It was not easy finding another 15 guys, narrowing down that list, and then finding the honorable mention. Very, very difficult. I want to thank Elio, Eddie, and Greg for coming in and being our guests on the show today. Thank Russ, Brian, and Bob for the jobs they do behind the fence right here. And I want to thank Chris Karen, Dan Exter, and of course Eddie Margulies for producing our show. I had an unbelievable time doing Around the Diamond and the All Metro show this season. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and I'm going to go play some golf. Enjoy your summer, everyone.